Game Market took place in mid-May 2025 in the Tokyo area, and if you're not familiar with this game convention, you can get a sample of it by reading this translated report from Table Games of the World. It gives you a small feel of what it's like to attend that show. It takes place over 2 days. There are hundreds of exhibitors available, some only on Saturday, some only on Sunday, so you get a different flavor of the show depending on which day you go. You'll want to go both days to see as much as you possibly can, but there's hundreds of exhibitors with hundreds of new games. You cannot possibly see it all. That's the good thing and the bad thing all rolled in one. One of the new games that appeared at that show is Wriggle Roulette, a 2 to 8 player game from Bruno Faiduti and Jun Sasaki, who is owner of Oink Games, which is the publisher of this little title. Let me give you an overview of how it plays. As with most titles from Oink Games, Wriggle Roulette comes in a hand-sized box, ideal for traveling. This edition has rules in Japanese and English. It has a bag of tokens and scoring chips. The game will last a variable number of rounds. It ends when someone has 20 or more points, and then whoever has the most points wins. Each round will last a variable number of turns. You are scoring points by getting eels from this bag of eels and snakes. At the start of a turn, you are going to grab 0 to 4 tokens from the bag. You don't know if you're getting eels or snakes. There's 3 times as many eels as snakes. In a 2-player game, you can grab up to 6 tokens. You then reveal everything at the same time and see whether there is a snake outbreak. So you have a snake outbreak with 6 to 17 snakes visible in hands and on the table. Okay, and that will depend upon the player count shown here. So we do not have 6 snakes in this fake 2-player game. So you put all the snakes in the middle of the table. Each player keeps their eels, and you do it again. So again, 2-player game, you grab up to 6 tokens. Game with any other player count, only up to 4. Do it again. Oh, only 1 more. Put those down. Do it again. I never imagined I'd be playing this game against myself. I'm gonna win and lose together. Okay. Again. Oh, snake outbreak. Right? With 2 players, you're gonna have a snake outbreak with 6. Now we have 7. When that happens, you look at everyone in the round, and whoever took more tokens is out, and they score nothing. Too greedy, right? We each caused it by both of us drawing 2, but this person was too greedy. They lose these tokens and everything that they had here. The other players in the game will score points for all the eels they have in front of them, which in this case is 10. I'm halfway to victory after 1 round. Now, put everything back in the bag and do it again. And so now my left hand is desperate to win. Looking bad here, being down by 10 points so early. All right, only 1. Put those down. Go again. Now, this works very differently, of course, with more people at the table, because there's a higher threshold for breaking and more things to consider than just one person having 10 points. All right, now we're at 3. Okay, so you can, remember, you choose 0 to 6. So if you end up choosing 0, as in the case here, you score everything that you have in front of you. So I will score 6 points. It doesn't matter what happens with everyone else. I just stepped back and I'm not participating. I cannot contribute to the snake outbreak. This hand, no more snakes. Now, someone steps out, their eels go back in the bag. So now the bag is more eel rich than ever. Looks good there. Because I pulled out a bunch. We got some snakes here. And I can just keep going. And I can draw out whatever I want. I'm the only player in the game, so I'm only going to bust if we get to 6 snakes. We got 5. If I draw one more, I bust, or I can just stop now and take 11 points, which is getting me close to this. So I'll do that. That's the whole dynamics of the game. You're just going to be drawing stuff out, see whether you have a snake outbreak or not. The game plays very differently with more people. I have played 4 times with player counts 5, 6, 7, and 8. With 8, you need 17 snakes, which is all of them. Every snake in the bag. But with 8 people drawing in the first round, typically everyone takes 4 tokens. You have 32 things coming out. 1/4 of what's in the bag is snakes. And so on average, you're going to have 1 snake per person in the game if they're all drawing 4 tokens. You take those odds into account, and then stuff's pulled out of the bag, and then we'll change the percentages of what's in the bag and how risky it is to draw more. But as people back out, things go back in the bag, all the eels that is, which makes you possibly more eager to keep going and see what you can get. Play multiple rounds until someone has 20 or more, and that's it. As I mentioned, I played Wriggle Roulette 4 times so far, once each with 5, 6, 7, and 8 players. And 3 of those games came at a convention, which is an ideal setting for getting lots of people around a table late at night to do something silly. This is a review copy of the game, so I did not pay for it, at least not to Oink, but I received it in a box along with Petticoat, the other new title from Oink Games, and I paid tariffs, $3 and change in tariffs, and a mandatory $17 charge by DHL. So my money for this game went to DHL, a bit to the US government, nothing to Oink. So you can keep that in mind if you want as I discuss this. Now, if you listen to the gameplay of Wriggle Roulette, and again, you have to sort of imagine playing it with lots of people instead of just the 2-handed version that I was doing, you might think it sounded like something else, specifically Diamant. This is a game that came out in 2005. It's co-designed by Bruno Faiduti and Eleanor Moon. So Bruno Faiduti is the common element in these 2 games released 20 years apart. And as we played Wriggle Roulette, many people said, this feels very much like Diamant. And then I mentioned Bruno Faiduti as co-designer, and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You're riffing on something that's come previously. The 2 games do feel similar, but there are a number of important differences to them. If you're familiar with Diamant, you can skip to this time and avoid my overview right now. Diamant has you as explorers going to a cave. You're trying to get as many gems as possible. Okay, it's a 3 to 8 player game. You're all going into the cave. You're going to reveal a card from the deck. If it has gems on it, you split those gems as evenly as possible among all the players and put anything that's left over on the card itself. You might have a card that shows a threat. There are 30 cards in the deck. Half of it is threats, 5 different types with 3 copies of each. Half of it is gem cards. And after every card is revealed, you decide whether you're going to explore further in the cave or head back to camp. And when you go back to camp, you take all the gems that you've collected along with any that you've scooped up along the way as you run back to camp, because no one's watching you anymore. You just take it all for yourself. Or if multiple people go, you have to split it with them. And now you keep those gems. All right? And the reason why you might want to go back is because if a threat is revealed for the second time, right, you've got a snake and then you got another snake, well, then everyone has to flee. They throw out their gems, they get nothing, and they run out of the cave. And you do this 5 times, and then you see who has the most gems and wins. So there are a lot of similarities in that you're trying to have the most. But this lasts 5 rounds, and this lasts a variable number of rounds until you hit a point total. Okay. This one has you deciding simultaneously whether you're going to go back to camp or whether you're going to keep going, because everyone just has a token in their hand, and they either have it in their hand or they don't. And if you don't, you're going on. And if you do, you run back to camp, effectively throwing your person back to camp over there. So you decide simultaneously. So it's pretty fast. Reveal a card, decide. Reveal a card, decide. This game takes a bit longer because each person is choosing individually, because you have to pass the bag around the table. And I'm going to take something, I'm counting. And sometimes people really took a long time because they find it hard to handle the tokens. They're trying to be like, okay, I think I've got 3 now. I got 3 and I got to feel it. Okay, I'm good. Okay, I'm good. And even if you're taking nothing, you of course don't want to just dip out. You gotta at least pretend. So it takes a little while to go around the table, especially with more players. So the game feels longer because you have this downtime. It's not tremendously long. It depends upon the players. Some players really seem to take a long time digging something out of the bag, but you know, different people have different abilities to feel tokens and count. So that feels different. The main difference, though, is that you're working towards a point threshold, right? In Diamant, if you're behind, well, then you just keep going. You just keep going. You try to outlast everyone else so that you're the only one in the cave and you get all these gems just to yourself before a threat's going to knock you out. You want people to run away, to be satisfied with what they have, and you can just keep going and try to get this big haul. But in Wriggle Roulette, it's a bit different because you're going to bust based upon everyone's collective actions, not the randomness of a card deck. With a card deck, you can compute the probability of busting after every card. If you're really good in, probabilities, you do all that. When something does bust, right? If snakes do make people run out of the cave, you remove one of those snake cards, which alters the probability of snakes chasing people out in the future. So you can calculate all that and decide whether it makes sense to keep going. Wriggle Roulette does not have that because it's all player driven. If enough people draw snakes, then you have an outbreak and the round ends. Now, even if you take precautions and only take 1 or 2 tokens, figuring that someone else will definitely take more than you, the round ends and you don't get to keep going. So I found it hard in the games I've played. If someone falls behind, they have a rough time even trying to get half of what someone else had. Because if you're all going at roughly the same rate, then you're all bust together often, or you just have to leave because you're afraid of busting. You don't get very much. It's hard to just go on your own to score. Now, maybe I just have to adjust how I play and make sure that I get something in the early rounds, that I don't press it too far. And so at least I get, 4 or 5, just a little foothold, and have other people chase me, which makes them play more dangerously and makes them reach into the bag and draw more tokens than they really want, so that they have a chance to catch up with me. It might be just a different feel for the game, because this, you just calculate the odds and you go, and 5 rounds and you're done, and that's it. And here, again, the number of rounds is variable. We had one game that took 2 rounds. That was it, because someone just got a huge haul of huge haul of eels, both times, 20 and we're done. So it felt weird. But again, that's just how it's going to work sometimes. The randomness of the bag is going to lead to those types of situations. And so this is more like a hangout game a bit. You may talk a bit, you're fooling around with people. You're not caring too much about keeping the game running on a regular basis. You got to be chill and just like, all right, cool. We're just hanging out, digging bags, talking crap about each other. And we're also playing a game. At least that's the feel that I had. But again, that's playing with a large group. If you're playing with a smaller group, then that's probably not going to happen. In a 2-player game, by myself, I take no guff and I just race along as quickly as possible, which is pointless, but you can do it that way. So they are familiar. They are similar. They're very much along the same lines of pressing your luck, players collectively trying to do this. You're trying to get a share out of here. The one real difference with Wriggle Roulette that isn't in Diamant, and that is a cool touch, is players putting eels back in the bag once they do step out. So that gives you a reason to push further, because the odds change. Snakes have been removed from the bag. more eels are going back in the bag, and so it's really adjusting the probability of what you're going to grab. It's kind of like in this when other people leave and you get a bigger share of the haul as gems are revealed. But again, not quite the same. It is fun though, just digging in the bag and trying to feel for things. That feels good. Sounds good too. Not all of the components are ideal though. Let me talk about that. The score chips come in 4 denominations, 1, 2, 5, and 10. And as you will notice, they are different on each side. So if you have tokens in front of you, you might accidentally flip them over. You can't play with your tokens. You will lose points or add points that you should not have because you will change the value. I guess there weren't quite enough tokens to make sense of having 1/4 1, 1/4 2s, 1/4 5, 1/4 10. Instead, we do it this way. So you get to optimize it a bit more with the drawback of you accidentally flipping stuff as you play with it, or you just hit them on the table, and because they have that rounded edge on one side and flat edge on the other, they might flip over like this. They're not going to flip this way, but you can flip it too. So that's the one drawback with these tokens. That should give you a decent understanding of what Wriggle Roulette is and how it plays and whether it might be a game in which you're interested. All right. It feels good just to dig in the bag and try to find stuff. There is something very satisfying about that, aside from the sound. Some people have talked about wanting a bigger bag. Like if you got a big hand, it may be a little hard to do this, but I haven't had an issue yet. All right, I'm ready.